Troublemaker, a Dave Brandstetter mystery. Book 3. Author, Joseph Hansen. Publisher, Open Road Media. Narrator, Eric Ost. This one is dedicated to Ken Thompson. Chapter 4. 7 draft beers and the glare of sunlight off windshields on freeways had given him a headache. He left the car under an old fig tree by someone's board back fence in a corner of the lot where he and Doug had leased spaces, and walked, tie loosened, jacket over arm, up Robertson past awning shops where worm-eaten rocking horses, wicker dog baskets, brass bedsteads crowded the sidewalk to a blue stucco building. They'd rented that lit Doug's gallery face the street and left the two of them, big, ungainly, sunlit rooms to echo around it upstairs. The gallery doors were a pair, tall, carved, unvarnished, and locked. He squinted at his watch, only 4:15. He turned, lifted a tired hand onto the portrait of himself, tall and alone in the Spanish arch window, and used a key on a blue door at the building's corner. It opened to narrow, straight stairs, the one feature of the place he disliked. As the door shut behind him and he started to climb, he heard voices. The acoustics in the hall were bad. There was loud rock music. He couldn't make out words. When he reached the top of the stairs, he went to where the voices were. Doug's room, skylit easels, a paint-clotted, zinc-top table with multiple shallow drawers for paints and brushes, blank canvases on stretchers, leaning against a wall. Kovacs sat on the edge of an open bed, naked, pale urban skin, black stand-up hair, scraggly mustache. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, head hanging, a can of beer in one hand. Doug Sawyer, compact, dark-skinned, gray-haired, stood in the open doorway to a long roof deck where rubber trees rooted in plank boxes threw shadows on redwood garden chairs. Kovacs raised bloodshot eyes to Dave, gave him a crooked smile, and said groggily, "Hi, Dave." Dave only looked at him and only looked at Doug. When Doug turned to face him, Doug said, "He had lunch and fell asleep. I've been at my mother's." The beaky little woman kept a pet shop on Lost L.A. side street between a bicycle store and a beauty parlor. She'd begun having trouble with her mind lately, forgetfulness, delusions. The doctor said it had to do with poor circulation. Doug was having to spend more and more time looking after her. Dave crouched and picked up a shallow bowl of thick, bubbly amber glass from a scatter of ash on the floor beside the bed. In it lay the twisted butts of handmade cigarettes, burned down short. Dave held it out toward Doug. "Joints. I make it 3. "I'm coming down," Kovacs said sullenly, then giggled. "That's what the brew is for." He drank from the steamy can. "I didn't ask you," Doug said. "You volunteered, remember?" "Gung-ho." "You were going to frame those awful daubs for Mrs. What's her name?" He walked to a farther room, and the rock racket did an audial down curve in quiet. "I didn't expect that, but I did expect you to be there." "I was there from 9:30 to 1, Kovacs said. "Then I got hungry." "Yeah, I also felt like a low, lazy high afterwards. Then I got sleepy. I was only going to shut my eyes." Doug leaned in a doorway and with a sad smile shook his head at Dave. He was spread out there like a smorgasbord. "Come on, Kovacs," said Kosher Smorgasbord. "I want a shower," Dave said, and passed Doug in the doorway. Doug brushed his ear with a kiss. "Whew, you smell like a brewery." "I have been interviewing gay bar owners," Dave said. "It's a long, dull story. I'll tell you later." He went on into his own room, which was the right size and shape to play Jail L.A. in, and began dropping his clothes, hearing Doug say to Kovacs, "See these cards stuck in the door, Madge? Dunstan and Ray Lollard, friends, both of whom would probably have bought something if the gallery'd been open. They might even have bought one of your pots." "Forgive," Kovacs said in a broad and phony Russian accent. "Kovacs, bad. Do better next time," he promised. The accent quit. "Oh, God," he moaned, and metal crumpled. "The can's dry. Get me another beer and I'll give you a kiss any place you wanna." Dave went into a big bathroom that was paved, walled, and domed in gaudy flowered Spanish tile. He took 3 aspirins, cranked the shower handles, and stepped under the spray. He'd forgotten Ray Lullard after phoning him at noon from a sun-hot booth of salt-crusty glass on Los Santos Pier. He'd gone to the pier, remembering how good the food used to be at a white wooden shack there called the Abalone. He hadn't reached Lullard out to lunch, and the Abalone's management had changed for the worse. Sand dabs sautéed in butter and sprinkled with sesame seeds had been his favorite. These were unbeatable, half cold, half raw. He made the best of the view, the good feel of the slow blue surf shaking the old pier stakes under the floorboards, and a cup of coffee, and laid open the bar magazine to study the addresses of the sponsors of entrance in the Mr. Marvelous contest. He made himself a mental map to follow with some toing and froing. He could hit 7 on his way from Los Santos back to L.A., a fair start. He could get to the remainder tonight. There'd been a sameness to them that was already blurring the places in his aching mind. Decor ranged from raw plywood, the bunkhouse, to flocked crimson wallpaper, the Queen in Court. But the sad, aging patrons were interchangeable. So were the tunes on the jukeboxes, and so were the owners, around 40. Too fleshy or too bony in clothes, too young in wigs styled sharply for last year, men long in the tooth and chatty. David met 5 of the contestants, too, all gathered at the Rawhide. Keegan had been right. There was some charm, even some wit among them. The night Rick Wendell was murdered, this bunch had been together at a party in the Hollywood Hills, celebrating the completion of a film in which they'd acted. If that was the word, Dave suspected it of being the same kind of film he'd rolled on Rick Wendell's bedside projector this morning. The sponsors of the other 2 boys said they'd been in the bars that evening, which, if it was true, narrowed down his list. He didn't regret that, not the way the bad beer and the worse bar air had left him feeling now. He lathered, let the shower wash him down, first hot, then cold, and decided he'd live. He stepped out of the shower, and Kovacs was standing at the toilet, still naked. He pushed the flush handle, turned, looked Dave up and down. "You've got a nice body for a geriatric case." "My heartfelt thanks," Dave said. "Excuse me." He reached past the lanky youth to get down a towel and walked out into the bedroom using it. He heard, or maybe felt, Kovacs at his back and asked, "Where's Doug?" "Down in the gallery." Kovacs blew on the back of Dave's neck and, chuckling softly, ran a hand along his shoulder down his arm. "We won't be disturbed." Dave pushed the towel at him. "You're already disturbed. Hang that up, please. Then go get your clothes and drift back to your clay and waddles." "There's a waddles shortage." Kovacs fell backward across Dave's bed and dropped the towel over his face. "Every waddle station in L.A. is closed. They paste up signs on the pumps, crooked, faltering, childlike lettering. Out of waddles, it's a conspiracy on the part of the big waddlers, producers, to bring the American economy to its knees." In the mirror over the chest, where he was poking into drawers after underwear and socks, he saw Kovacs throw off the towel and sit up. His dark, long lashes, eyes went grave and pleading. He held out his hands. "Come on, Dave, let's make it. I have this need." Dave pulled on shorts. "It's all in your mind." Picking up the towel, he went back into the bathroom, rehung it, and started brushing his teeth at the basin. In the doorway behind him, Kovacs said, "It's a 4-letter word for a part of the human anatomy, and it's not mind." Dave spat peppermint suds, rolled his eyes up, said, "Hey!" and rinsed his mouth. Pushing past Kovacs, he told him, "Try a cold shower." He went back to the chest for denims. "I need a warm body," Kovacs said. "Sorry." Dave kicked into the pants. "Only one to a customer." He zipped the pants, found his little book in the discarded suit jacket, sat on the bed, and picked the phone up from the floor. There wasn't much furniture yet. He and Doug had moved in only 6 weeks ago, and most of their time, energy, and money had gone into fitting out the gallery up here. things were still bare. He dialed Ray Lollard again. A girl said, "He left early, Mr. Brandstetter. I thought he was going to see you." "He tried," Dave said. "I missed him." "Thanks." He hung up, pulled on a light jersey turtleneck, found Kovacs in Doug's room, seated on the bed again in clay-stained dungarees, buckling warped sandals. He grumbled, "I feel like Bette Davis and the old maid." "You'll never be an old maid," Dave said. "Not while the role of fifth wheel is open." "I don't reject easy." Kovacs yanked a red and black striped tank top over his flat torso. "I belong here somewhere. I know it. It's karma. If you..." The street door opened below. A voice called, "Davy!" That had to be Madge Dunstan. She was Dave's oldest friend, a successful designer of textiles and wall coverings, a lean, handsome woman, sharp, tough-minded, good-humored. It always pleased Dave to see her. It pleased him something extra now because he'd had enough of Kovacs and he didn't want to mishandle him. His pottery was exceptional and about the only thing bringing Doug any business yet. If Kovacs was to be dumped, it was up to Doug. Was Doug up to it? Dave gave his head an impatient shake as he crossed the vast open space they decided was the living room. 2 sets of shoes climbed the stairs from the hall. He looked down. Behind Madge, whose head was bent because she was watching her feet, came Ray Lollard, who smiled and said, "We met at Doug's fast-closed door and decided to bide our time over a drink across the street. You're back, just as I predicted, both of you." Kovacs stood by Dave. "All 3, he said. Madge's head came up. Lollard's eyebrows came up, and as they reached the stairhead, Dave told them, "This is Kovacs. He's trying to adopt us." "Both of you?" Madge gave the bushy-haired youth her strong handshake and her best warm smile, but the tilt of her head told Dave that Kovacs hadn't made a new friend. Not yet. "I thought," she said, "the menage a trois went out with Noel Coward." "It's back." Kovacs showed big white even teeth with ragtime piano and the John-held look. "Kovacs," Lollard mused. "Then those would be your ceramics downstairs." "No." "Handsome. There's something so alive about them." "I'm oversexed," Kovacs explained, and shook hands with Lollard. "Maybe you'd better go turn down your kiln," Dave said, and took Lollard's elbow and began steering him back toward the kitchen. "Were you able to get me that name and address?" Lollard moved reluctantly, looking back over his shoulder. "Aren't you lucky?" he murmured enviously. "He's a dream." "Of one kind or another," Dave said. "The name." "What? Oh, yes. I'm sorry it took so long, but it's new and unlisted." He handed Dave a slip of paper. "Thomas Owens," Dave read aloud. Kovacs' flat soles were slapping down the stairs, and Madge joined Dave and Lollard. "What about him?" In a big old kitchen, shiny with flowered tile, Dave began collecting gin, vermouth, pitcher glasses, ice cubes. "I seem to know the name." "Of course you do," Madge said. "You've met him at my house more than once. An architect, remember? Nice guy until lately. Too damn sad." "How's that?" Dave made spiral cuts in a lemon rind. "He's the gaunt kind of intense one with the yellow eyes, right?" "What was so sad? I forget that." "We'd all given up on him," Lollard called. He looked at the front windows peering down at the street, probably hoping for another glimpse of Kovacs. "Professionally, I mean," Madge said. "He kept getting commissions, then losing them by insisting things would be done either his way or not at all." "That can keep an architect poor, yes." Dave loosened his ice cubes from a tray and dumped them into the pitcher, which had been living in the freezer and was coated with snow. "It's not the freest of the 7 deadly arts, is architecture." "It's curious, too," Madge said. "He's so sweet and giving, so gentle and kind, personally. I guess a word might be yielding. Everybody loves him, even other architects, and I don't mean just respect. They've got that, too, but tenderness, a kind of sheltering attitude, protective. Everybody wants to help him. That's the mystifying part." "Nobody could." Dave began turning the ice with a glass rod. "Did he ever bring a Larry Johns to your house?" "Maybe 20, 21. Blonde, about 5'11", 150 pounds, long yellow hair and mustache. He never brought anyone. Madge wandered into the hall and out onto the roof garden. Her words drifted in through the open kitchen window. He lives with a widowed sister he supports, has for years. But she has a child and they never came. I suspect she'd be uncomfortable in a room not filled with reliably heterosexual matrons. Anyway, his fortunes have changed at last. He's built some stunning beach houses. Lullard came the long walk back across the living room. For film people, he said. Show business people. He finally found one too busy with road shows or Las Vegas or something to bother him. What he built was marvelous after that. Everyone wanted one. He just lately finished a lovely place for himself. Only a couple of miles from me, Madge called. What's the name of this big climbing thing with the perforated leaves? Monstera? Something, right? Delacosa, Dave said. Do you know anybody in the bar, restaurant, hotel supply business, Madge? Any number. Madge came back in with a kite-sized green leaf in her hand. She leaned against the refrigerator, holding it up, studying it. What's on your mind? Yes, this place is big and empty, but surely... No, Dave put a glass into the bony, freckled hand that wasn't busy with the leaf. What I need to know is if you've heard of any rip-offs lately, like a truckload of padded leather chairs on swivels. Madge had taken a mouthful of martini. She shook her head and swallowed. That was last year. A renegade truck driver sold it for his own profit instead of delivering it where it had been ordered. Good. Dave put a glass into Ray Lollard's hand. He asked Madge, do you remember who bought it? Well, now. But wait. She frowned. It wasn't chairs. It was high stools. The big, deep, cushiony kind. Yes, a gay bar and surf. What's it called? They were remodeling, raising the bar, putting in walnut paneling, padding, everything in leather. Naturally, when the police came around, they gave the stools back. They hadn't known they were stolen. The Hang Ten? Dave asked. She nodded quickly. Yeah, that's the one. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.